The morning sun rose over San Francisco's financial district, casting gold light across the mirrored windows of the towering skyscrapers. Streams of people in designer suits hurried through the plaza, earbuds in, coffee cups in hand. Another day chasing deadlines and dreams. Among them walked Ethan Cole, the 38-year-old CEO of Virion Technologies, a company that had become a Silicon Valley darling for its cutting-edge microchips used in everything from smartphones to electric cars. Ethan was the kind of man who radiated success. Tailored navy suit, polished shoes that clicked confidently against the marble walkway, sleek smartwatch that glowed with calendar reminders. He loved the city's rhythm, the buzz, the ambition, the sense that only the smartest and strongest thrived here. And in his mind, he was one of them, a self-made visionary who had built his empire from scratch. As he approached the entrance of the Virion Tower, something broke the perfection of his morning routine. Near the edge of the fountain that decorated the plaza sat a man, older, wrapped in a faded gray coat, a wool cap pulled low over his brow. His beard was thick, his hands weathered, his eyes tired but strangely kind. Beside him rested a cardboard sign that read, "Just need a chance." Ethan slowed his pace, his expression hardening. He'd seen this man before, sitting there every morning, as reliable as the sunrise. The homeless man smiled when their eyes met. "Morning, sir," he said warmly, voice rough but sincere. "Hope your day's a good one." Ethan frowned. "You've been here all week," he said curtly. "You really think sitting on the ground is going to change anything?" The man's smile didn't fade. "You'd be surprised what can change if someone just looks your way." Ethan gave a short, humorless laugh. "You know, I built my life from nothing. I didn't waste time waiting for handouts." The man tilted his head. "Did you build it alone?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Yes. No one gave me a thing." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a few coins, and dropped them into the man's cup. The coins clinked sharply against the metal, not kindness, but dismissal. "Here," he said coldly. "Maybe it'll buy you a reality check." He turned toward the tower, but the man's calm voice followed him. "You're right about one thing," the man said softly. "Reality does catch up with us. Sooner or later." Ethan stopped for a moment, his back stiff. Then, without another word, he pushed through the glass doors of his building, greeted by a polished lobby and polite smiles from receptionists who called him sir. The elevator doors closed behind him with a quiet hiss, sealing off the noise of the city and the sound of the old man's words. He didn't know it yet, but the man he had just mocked would soon shatter everything he thought he knew about his company and about himself. The elevator glided up 50 floors, its glass walls revealing the city, stretching beneath like a circuit board of light and motion. Inside, Ethan Cole scrolled through his messages, ignoring the polite greetings from his assistants, as he stepped out into the sleek, open office of Virion Technologies. Every inch of it was designed to impress. Glass partitions, chrome desks, interactive displays showing stock prices and global news. His world, built on innovation and control. He dropped his briefcase on his desk and poured himself a coffee from the machine that probably cost more than the average employee's monthly rent. His executive assistant, Tina, followed him in with a tablet in hand. "Good morning, sir. You've got a product demo at 10, investor call at 1, and—" Ethan cut her off with a raised hand. "Let's skip the rundown. Where are we with the chip prototype?" "The investors are expecting progress this week." Tina hesitated. "Engineering flagged an issue overnight. Lena asked for an emergency meeting." Ethan's brow furrowed. "What kind of issue?" "She said it's serious." Minutes later, he was in the glass conference room, facing Lena Morales, the company's lead engineer, a brilliant woman in her 30s with a quiet intensity. She had a folder open on the table, filled with diagrams and documents. "We have a problem," she began, her tone steady but tense. "Our new chip, the Virion Core X, runs on an architecture that we based on the company's original design. The foundation code and circuit structure are over a decade old. But when my team went to revalidate the design for patent expansion, the documentation is gone." Ethan frowned. "Gone? How can it be gone? We've got everything backed up to 3 different servers." "That's the strange part," she said. The files were never uploaded to the cloud. They only exist in the archived local drives from the company's earliest days. And when we pulled the internal index logs, she turned the tablet toward him, showing a list of files with one name repeated over and over in the metadata. Miles. Robert. Project Origin. Ethan stared at the name. Who is that? Dr. Robert Miles, Lena said. A freelance engineer who helped develop our first architecture before Virion was officially founded. According to the old contracts, he was supposed to finalize the documentation, but his name doesn't appear on any patent. Somehow, the entire foundation of our current chip is still legally attributed to him. Ethan leaned back, his confidence flickering for the first time. That's ridiculous. We've been selling this tech for years. Lena nodded slowly. Yes, but if he never formally transferred ownership, we could be in violation of intellectual property law. If someone traces this back, the patents and the company could be contested. Ethan's jaw tightened. So find him. Buy him out. Pay him off. Whatever it takes. Lena's expression darkened. That's the problem. He disappeared 10 years ago. No address, no forwarding contact, no bank activity under that name. It's like he vanished. Ethan rubbed his temples, frustration rising. Then find something. Old associates, family, anyone who knew him. Lena paused before adding, there's one more thing. According to an internal note from 2013, Dr. Miles was the one who wrote the original hardware manifesto, the one you've quoted in your speeches. Ethan froze. He knew the line by heart. Technology should empower humanity, not exploit it. It was printed on the company's brochures, engraved on the lobby wall, the motto he claimed as his own vision. His throat went dry. You're telling me that wasn't mine? Lena shook her head gently. No, sir. It was his. The room felt smaller suddenly. The hum of the air conditioning, the distant sound of keyboards, even the city outside, all seemed to fade under the weight of her words. Ethan forced a tight smile, hiding the unease creeping into his chest. All right, then we find him. Quietly. I don't want this leaving this room. As Lena gathered her papers, Ethan walked to the window. From 50 stories up, the streets below looked tiny, almost insignificant. But his eyes caught on one detail, the fountain in the plaza, and the old man sitting beside it. The same man he'd mocked that morning. For a split second, he felt a strange pull of recognition he couldn't explain. But then, the thought passed. He straightened his tie, his reflection cold in the glass. Nobody, he muttered, comes back from nothing. He didn't know how wrong he was. That night, the city glittered like circuitry, lines of light weaving through darkness, traffic pulsing like energy down the veins of San Francisco. Ethan Cole sat alone in his corner office, staring at the glowing skyline through the glass. His reflection looked back at him. Expensive suit, tired eyes, the faintest hint of unease beneath the mask of control. On his desk were scattered papers and a printed copy of the engineering logs. The name Robert Miles glared up at him from every line. It bothered him. Not just the potential legal risk, but something deeper. How had he never heard of this man? How could someone so vital to the company's foundation just vanish? He tapped his pen against the table, staring at the name again. Dr. Robert Miles. A ghost in the system. Eventually, Ethan gave up on work and decided to head home. It was late, the plaza nearly empty, except for the hum of the fountain. He walked out through the glass doors, the cold air stinging his face. And there he was again, the same homeless man, wrapped in his tattered coat, seated by the fountain, sketching something on a torn piece of cardboard. The streetlights painted soft halos on the wet pavement. Ethan slowed. A part of him wanted to walk past and forget, but another part, the restless, curious part that had built an empire, made him stop. What are you drawing? He asked, his voice clipped but curious. The man looked up, smiling faintly. Oh, just keeping my hands busy. Old habits, I guess. Ethan took a step closer. Those look like schematics. The man chuckled. Good eye. Not many people notice that. Ethan crouched slightly, his curiosity sharpening. The lines on the cardboard weren't random. They were precise, almost professional. Loops, nodes, digital pathways. unmistakably a circuit design, but not just any circuit. Ethan recognized the pattern instantly. It was the same core structure that powered Virion's prototype chip. He felt his heartbeat quicken. "Where did you see this?" he demanded, the edge of authority creeping into his voice. "Who showed you this design?" The man's expression softened. "I didn't see it," he said quietly. "I made it. Years ago." Ethan froze. The city noise around them faded to silence. "You made it?" The man extended a weathered hand. "Name's Robert Miles. Or at least it used to mean something." Ethan just stared. His mind raced. The name, the design, the records, the missing files. "That's impossible," he said under his breath. "Dr. Miles disappeared years ago." Robert smiled sadly. "I guess you could say I disappeared from the right places. Life has a funny way of taking everything if you let it." Ethan straightened, his tone sharp. "You're saying you're the one who designed the technology Virion was built on?" "I'm not saying it," Robert replied calmly. "I'm just remembering it." He reached into his coat and pulled out a worn, folded piece of paper, the company's original blueprint, yellowed and smudged with age. Ethan recognized it immediately. He'd seen a digital copy once, long ago, during a board presentation. "I sketched this in my apartment the year before Virion launched," Robert continued, his voice low but steady. "Back when your co-founder, Tom Jensen, was still running a laptop out of his kitchen. He was a good man, passionate, hopeful. He believed we were changing the world." Ethan felt his chest tighten at the mention of Tom. Jensen had died in a car crash years ago, before the company had made it big. His death had left Ethan in sole control, and with no one to contradict his story of founding genius. "Tom promised me partnership," Robert said softly. "But when my wife got sick, I sold my early patents to him for almost nothing, just enough to pay hospital bills. After she passed, I didn't have the strength to come back. The company moved on without me." Ethan swallowed hard. His throat felt dry. "Why come here then? Why sit in front of my building every day?" Robert looked up at the glowing Virion Tower, his eyes reflecting its light. "I just wanted to see what became of it, the dream we started. I never blamed anyone. I just wanted to see it still alive." For the first time in years, Ethan didn't know what to say. He had mocked this man, tossed coins at him like trash. And now, standing before him, was the very mind that had made his empire possible. Robert smiled gently. "You know, I used to think success was about the name on the patent. Now I think it's about the people who remember why it mattered in the first place." Ethan's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Does anyone else know?" Robert shook his head. "No one cares about ghosts, Mr. Cole. Don't worry, I'm not here to take anything. I just wanted to know if you still believe in what you built." For the first time in his career, Ethan couldn't answer. He just stood there, speechless, as the man who had once invented his company's future quietly gathered his papers and turned away into the cold night. And as the CEO watched him disappear into the dark, one thought haunted him. Maybe I didn't build Virion at all. Ethan barely slept that night. He sat in his penthouse office long after everyone else had gone home, staring at the faint reflection of the city lights across the window. The words of the old man, "I just wanted to see what became of it," replayed over and over in his mind like static he couldn't turn off. By morning, exhaustion had settled behind his eyes. But something else too, a weight heavier than any board meeting or quarterly report. Doubt. He arrived at the office before sunrise, slamming his briefcase onto his desk and waking his assistant with a startled jolt. "Tina, get me every document tied to the early Virion patents," he said sharply. "Founding contracts, engineering files, anything that mentions Robert Miles." Tina blinked. "Sir, those are from over 10 years ago. Most of the original data's archived, then unarchive it," he snapped. "Now." Within the hour, the old archives were pulled from storage. Ethan combed through thousands of files, scrolling, scanning, searching, and there it was again, Miles. Robert stamped across every document, schematic, and technical note. His initials even appeared in the margin of the earliest white papers, in handwriting Ethan recognized from the folded page the old man had shown him. The truth was in front of him, undeniable. Robert Miles hadn't just worked with Virion. He had built Virion. The system architecture, the power algorithms, the patent blueprints, all of it originated from him. And Tom Jensen, Ethan's late co-founder, had acquired the rights quietly after Robert sold them out of desperation. It hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. His whole career, the speeches, the interviews, the awards, had been built on a foundation of someone else's brilliance. And worse, that someone was living on the street right outside his building. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his face. The realization wasn't just humbling, it was horrifying. At 10 o'clock, the board meeting began. Investors filled the room, confident and expectant. Ethan stood before them, but the words came out hollow. He presented the product updates, the profit forecasts, the vision for innovation, but his voice sounded like someone else's. Each slide on the screen, each image of the Virion chip, felt like a lie. When it ended, he didn't return to his office. He went straight outside. The plaza was bustling with employees heading to lunch. Near the fountain, the old man wasn't there. His usual spot was empty, the cardboard sign gone, the cup missing. For a moment, Ethan felt panic twist in his chest. He asked the security guard if he'd seen him. Yeah, the guard said, shrugging. Came by early, looked sick. Paramedics picked him up around 7, said they were taking him to County General. Ethan didn't think. He just ran. At the hospital, the halls smelled of antiseptic and stale air. A nurse led him to a small room at the end of the corridor. There, hooked up to an IV, lay Robert Miles, thinner now, paler, but still with that same calm expression. When Robert opened his eyes, he looked almost amused. Didn't think I'd see you again, he said, voice weak but steady. Ethan sat down beside the bed, guilt written all over him. I found the files, he said quietly. Everything. Your work. You made Virion. Robert gave a faint smile. I know. I should have known sooner, Ethan said. You deserved the credit, the recognition. Everything we built came from you. Robert shook his head slightly. That's not what matters. What matters is what you did with it. You built something bigger. You kept it alive. Ethan's throat tightened. At your expense. Robert looked at him. Not with anger, not with resentment, but with the tired grace of a man who had already forgiven the world long ago. Ethan, he said softly, when you start believing success belongs only to you, that's when you lose what it's supposed to mean. I lost everything chasing the wrong kind of pride. Don't make the same mistake. Ethan looked down, silent. After a long pause, Robert added, You know what the funny part is? I never stopped designing. Even now, I still draw circuits in my head when I can't sleep. But I realize something out there on those streets. Invention isn't about owning an idea. It's about what the idea gives to people. That's legacy. Not a patent, not a profit. Ethan swallowed hard. Then let me do one thing right. Let me give you back your name. Robert smiled faintly, his eyelids fluttering. You already did, son. You remembered it. His breathing grew slower, his voice quieter. Make it mean something again. Ethan stayed by his side until the monitors began to slow, until the faint beeping faded into silence. The man who had built the foundation of an empire, the one he'd once tossed coins at, was gone. Later that night, Ethan stood again before the fountain, alone. The plaza lights shimmered on the water's surface. In his hand, he held the folded blueprint Robert had given him, the one that had started it all. For the first time in years, he didn't feel powerful. He felt human. He whispered, I'll make it right. And for the first time, he meant it. 2 months later, the sky above San Francisco was a soft shade of gray, the kind that made the glass towers look less like monuments and more like mirrors, reflecting everything, even what people tried to hide. Inside the Virion Tower, hundreds of employees gathered in the main lobby, curious, murmuring among themselves. Cameras from tech magazines and news outlets lined the back wall. A press conference had been called, one no one had expected. On the stage stood Ethan Cole, dressed in a simple gray suit, no tie, no arrogance this time. His eyes were clear but tired. Behind him, a new plaque hung beneath the company's mission statement. The words, Technology should empower humanity, not exploit it, gleamed under the lights. Ethan stepped up to the microphone. The crowd fell silent. 10 years ago, he began, his voice low but steady. Viren Technologies was founded on a dream I claimed as my own. I told the world I built it from nothing. But that wasn't true. A hush spread through the room. The cameras zoomed closer. Ethan continued. The truth is that this company and every piece of technology we've developed rests on the work of one man, a man whose name you've probably never heard. His name was Dr. Robert Miles. A ripple of surprise went through the audience. He was a brilliant engineer, Ethan said. He designed the architecture that powers our most successful products. And he hesitated, his voice catching. I walked past him every day for years, without seeing who he really was. I judged him for what I saw on the outside, while everything I built on the inside was his creation. The room was so quiet that the hum of the air vents could be heard. Ethan took a deep breath. Dr. Miles passed away last month, but he left behind more than blueprints or patents. He left behind a reminder that dignity isn't earned by wealth or titles, but by the good we put into the world. He turned toward the plaque behind him. The cloth covering it fell away, revealing the new engraving. The Robert Miles Innovation Center, dedicated to the mind and heart that built the foundation of Virion Technologies. There were tears in the audience, even from some who didn't know the full story. Ethan continued, from today forward, every Virion product will carry his name, the Miles series. And every year, we'll fund scholarships for engineers who've lost their footing but haven't lost their dreams, because genius can be found anywhere, even sitting by a fountain, waiting to be seen. He paused, letting the words settle. I was wrong about what it means to build something. I thought success was about being the smartest person in the room. But real success is about the courage to honor those who came before you, the ones who built the walls you're standing in, even if they never got to walk through the doors. The room erupted in applause. It wasn't the usual polite, rehearsed kind. It was real, human, warm, heavy with meaning. When the conference ended, Ethan stayed behind, standing near the new plaque. The lobby slowly emptied until it was just him and the quiet hum of the fountain outside. He walked out into the plaza, where the city lights were just beginning to glow. The spot where Robert used to sit was empty now, only a few pigeons picking at crumbs, the sound of water falling gently into the basin. Ethan reached into his pocket and unfolded the same worn blueprint Robert had given him. The edges were creased, the ink faded, but the signature at the bottom still read clearly, R. Miles. He smiled faintly, folded it back, and whispered, You didn't just build a chip. You built me. A soft breeze rippled through the plaza, and the fountain's reflection shimmered in the glass of the tower, Robert's legacy alive in every light. Ethan turned toward the doors and walked back inside, ready to rebuild his company the way it should have been from the start. Not on ego, but on gratitude. Because sometimes the greatest invention isn't the technology we create, but the humanity we rediscover.